Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to another episode of Glass Half Full, a podcast and a safe platform where we talk with a variety of teachers, entrepreneurs, spiritualists, uplifters, givers, shakers, and serenaders. Everyone has a lesson to learn and a lesson to share. Let's use our life experiences to enrich someone's heart, mind, spirit, and soul. Through sharing our experiences, we can be a learning inspiration for one another. I'm your host, Chris Levens. Let's welcome today's guest. Today's guest is Ann Hince. When Ann was 19, she woke one morning to find her mother dead in her bathroom. 20 years later, the tears from the trauma were still just under the surface. Ann found a simple technique that helped her release these emotions. But she went further and can now put her awareness inside her body. I'm just going to read that again. She can now put her awareness inside her body and has changed the bone structure of her skull and grown half an inch at age 55. Ann has found that seeking out our truth, what we truly feel, and accepting those feelings is the key to inner peace. Author of A Pathway to Insight, a spiritual teacher, and a public speaker, let's welcome Ann Hince. Good evening, good evening.
Good evening.
How are you this evening?
I'm doing great, thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you so much for taking some time out to be a guest here on Glass Half Full. We are so happy to have you today.
Well, thank you for having me. I love deep conversations, so I love these talks.
Oh, yes, we do too. So I'm going to jump right in. I like to ask all of my guests this first question. I believe that our lives are in spiritual design. Can you share your life layout or blueprint with everyone? How you grew up, where, your family lifestyle?
I can. I'm not sure it's a normal blueprint. I guess maybe it's my blueprint, but it wasn't necessarily normal. So I was actually conceived in New Zealand and then born in England. And I was born with my right foot up against my right shin. So the first 6 weeks of my life, I had physical therapy. But my mother was already planning on giving me up for adoption. So at 6 weeks, I was handed over to another family who had just suffered a trauma because they had a 2-year-old that they had adopted prior. And then they adopted another little girl and they had her for 6 months. They raised her for 6 months. And then the birth mother changed her mind. So I was the replacement into the family for that little girl. So that was the beginning, and then we moved around the world. So I lived in Barbados first, then Sierra Leone in West Africa, then in Hong Kong, and then in Bahrain, kind of going back and forth to England sometimes between those countries. And then at 19, my adopted mother died, and at 21, I moved out to California and have lived here ever since. So now I'm married, I have 2 kids, and that's where I am now.
Wow. That is a story. That is to get you around. And where in California are you living?
I'm in Northern California, directly east of San Francisco in the Sierra Nevada foothills.
Oh, wow. I'm sure that's beautiful country.
It is. It's near Yosemite. A lot of people have heard of Yosemite Valley. It's a couple of hours from there.
Wow. Nice. Thank you so much for sharing that. So let me ask, what has been, even in the information that you just giving, what has been the biggest struggle or defining moment of your life?
Well, there's been a couple of defining moments, but along my journey, I guess, there's one particular one of the biggest defining moments was meeting my birth mother, which I didn't mention happened at the age of 17. And that was hugely emotional for me, finding my adopted mother dead on the bathroom floor was a huge emotion too, a different type of emotion. And then it wasn't really until I was in my late 30s that I had like a business altercation with a couple of other mothers at my boys' school. And they were very self-confident, self-assured, authority type women. Mm-hmm. And I was this really scared mother on the inside. And they told me I'd done something wrong. And that was, I just reacted in this massive way. And my mind just went out of control. And it just went over and over what they'd said and what I'd said and what they said I'd done. And it was like 3 days I couldn't sleep. And I realized at that point, I just don't think this is normal. Mm-hmm. I don't think other people would react this intensely to something that really wasn't that big a deal. Mm-hmm. And that's when I realized, okay, I think this feels kind of like how I would react when my dad told me I'd done something wrong, right? Because he was my authority figure.
Okay.
And so that was like the first inkling that maybe something in my childhood is still affecting me to that day, you know, in my late 30s. So that was a definite defining moment.
Wow. Okay. You just hit on a few of them, but yeah, wow. That was, And you said this was in your 30s.
Yeah, in my late 30s.
So you had already, the birth mother was 17.
I met her when I was 17.
Adopted mother is 19.
Yeah.
And then now,
19.
Okay. And then now we have this event at 30. Wow. My gosh. So things were just building up and just bubbling under, you know.
Right. Well, I'd had a lot of other traumas in childhood as well. You know, finding my adopted mother dead was kind of a culmination, right? Both my parents had been alcoholics and my dad had anger issues. So, you know, life at home was not fun. I used to, you know, say to myself, this feels like I'm living in hell.
Wow.
So, you know, that was inside of me. We'd also had a house fire. And I'd had a lot of bullying at school. I was actually sent to a boys' boarding school for the first boarding school I went to. I was the first girl boarder at this boys' boarding school.
What? Oh, my gosh.
I know. I think it was maybe more convenient to send me to my brother's boarding school. Now, there were some day girls who would, you know, be there during the day and then they would leave and I would be the only girl at night. So I was teased mercilessly for 2 years.
Oh, my gosh.
So all those things kind of lived inside of me, but we get so programmed in those early years of life on how to deal with things. Mm-hmm. And our way of dealing with things was just suppressing everything and carrying on as if nothing had happened. So that's what I did all the way along, right? Even after my mother died, I just carried on with life because I didn't know there was anything else, any other way of going about it.
Wow.
Yeah.
My gosh.
So I did.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing your truth. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
I know the truth is important.
You know what it is. But you know what? Some people are not ready to really dig into it because they haven't done their own work. You know, so when we hear people go into their truth, and as you have with everything, you just put it all out there on the line, like we can tell that you've done your work. Otherwise, you would never be able to be so freely to talk about it, you know, and to share. And so thank you. Just thank you for that.
You're welcome. And that's how you can tell that you've done your work if there's no emotional attachment to it anymore, right? It's just a story.
All right now. Y'all heard that? That's right. That's right. So, Ann, tell us, how do you believe that you can change the world with your work?
Because I think of things through the law of attraction. You know, I'd heard of that phrase a lot. I'd done a lot of reading about the law of attraction. And I really, really wanted to understand how it worked. Mm-hmm. So I was actually determined to understand how it worked. Now, not in terms of manifestation. I'm not trying to change anything. I'm not trying to manifest something. I just wanted to know on a day-to-day basis, right, how is it working? And I realized that every second of every day, we are emitting a signal out to the universe or to whatever, and we're attracting back into our future based on that signal. So if I'm feeling really angry right now, I'm going to attract anger again into my future. I'm going to attract the same feeling again into my future. Mm-hmm. Now, it took me a while to really understand that. So what I realized I had to do was change my signal in the moment, right? If I don't want to feel this way again in the future, I have to change my signal right now. So if I can change myself from anger or frustration or sadness or depression or whatever back to peace, then I'm attracting peace back into my future. So if we all do that, then we're attracting peace back into our collective future.
All right now.
Yeah, so that's how we can change the world, right? So there's so much going on outside of us these days, right? All these divisions and politics and all sorts of things that are happening. If we can take how we feel about that and release it and come back to peace, then I believe we are changing our future.
How do you release it?
Okay, so that's
because I know a lot of people are feeling, because a lot of people say, yeah, definitely. And I get it. You do have to release it. You can't, because otherwise you're still holding on to it. But I've had a lot of people ask me like, well, how do you release it? How do you let it go when you're still thinking about it or it's still on your mind? And what do you say?
Right. So let me tell you the first step of my journey. My journey really had 3 big steps to it, to where I am now, where I can put my awareness inside my bones even.
Okay.
But to begin with, I couldn't do that, right? So it was in the time frame of this altercation with these other mothers that I actually went to a doctor's appointment. Now, he happened to be a holistic MD. And I have no idea why I went to him. I cannot remember why I went to him, but it was nothing to do with emotions or with my story, my history. But he recognized I was more stressed than I should be. And he asked me on a scale of 0 through 10 what my stress level was. And I said 8. And then he asked me why. And it was that question that made me realize, oh, it's my mother's death, which is now about 2 decades earlier, because the tears were still just under the surface. They hadn't gone anywhere. They were still sitting inside of me. So he knew this technique. It's called EFT, which is short for Emotional Freedom Technique. It's also called tapping, because we tap on certain specific places on our body as we're talking through something. So he worked with me, he tapped with me for about 15 minutes about my mother's death. And I walked away from that appointment being able to tell the story of her death in my mind now without the tears there anymore. And that was the first time I realized how we hold our memories and emotions physically in our body and that we can let them go.
Well, so at that moment, I mean, after this, did you... I guess before this, maybe you had broken down. After, did you physically cry? Was there a release?
As I was tapping, yes. As I was tapping, definitely tears. Yes, I couldn't stop them. The tapping releases the tension in the nervous system. So it allows you to release that energy. So, that 15 minutes with him was like the first layer of emotions. It didn't clear the whole story, but it took off that first layer. We talk about layers of the onion. It peeled off that first layer. Then I went home. I looked online because I wanted to know everything about this technique. And it was given away by Gary Craig, who developed it for free. So anyone can go online and learn it. It's very easy and very simple, which is actually part of the problem, because I think a lot of people don't really think it's doing much.
Okay.
But it really is, right? But then I wanted to check it out. I didn't mention, but I was a software engineer. That's why I moved out. Well, one of the reasons I moved out to California and became a software engineer. So I like to know things work before I spend time doing them.
Which is smart.
So I wanted to check it out. And at the time, we had a 17-year-old cat at home, and he was just starting to fail. His kidneys were starting to fail. And we were told we needed to give him a daily saline shot. Well, I hated injections. I still hate injections, but not the way I did. And the first time I gave him that shot, my hand was shaking so much because I was so afraid of giving him the shot. I wasn't going to be able to do it every day, and that's what we've been told. So I knew I had to do something. So I tried out EFT with this small example. So I tapped about it. I tapped about my hand shaking. I tapped about my fear of hurting my cat. And I tapped about all the memories I had had from all the injections from moving around the world. I'd had a lot. And the next day, the needle just slid right in. All that fear that I had been holding inside of me the day before had just disappeared.
Wow.
And that's when I realized two things. I realized first that EFT is deceptively powerful, doesn't look like it's doing much, but I really realized at that point that it really is. And I realized that freedom is on the other side of that fear. And that is where I wanted to be. And I was determined to get there. So that was the starting point for me of using this technique, EFT, to become peaceful, right? At least to start the journey to become peaceful on the inside.
And when you say tapping, you're like tapping on the skin? You tapping on
yes.
the...
So
okay.
yes, there's like 10 or so points on the body, which are the ends of meridian systems. So
Okay.
it's a little bit like acupressure.
Okay.
So you're tapping on these specific points, like the first one's the karate chop points on the side of the hands, then on the top of the head, crown point on the top of the head, beginning of the eyebrows, the bone on the end of the eye, edge of the eye, the bone under the eye, then under the nose, on the chin, on the collarbone, and under the arm. That's it.
Wow.
One set of points.
Okay, so
And
we're
you
not
tap
touching
on
the
them.
legs, we're not touching the abdomen area, none of that.
No,
wow.
Just that upper body,
Upper
I suppose you would
yeah.
say.
Wow.
Yes. Yeah. And you go through your truth, right? This is part of finding your truth, whatever your truth is. Excuse me. So it's whatever you're feeling right now, or for me with a story, right? You could start with a story, right? I woke up one morning and needed to go to the bathroom. Walked to the bathroom, found my mother dead on the bathroom floor.
Okay.
Right, there's a whole story to that. So I would tap
Okay.
through the story, tap through any emotions as they come up. Then I'd go back to the beginning of the story and do the whole story again. And as you do that, the subconscious mind starts to open up, and you start becoming aware of more details of the story that had been hidden below those emotions before. So then you do the whole story again, and you do it again and again until all the emotion has gone from it. And then it is just a story.
Wow. And so this is a process that you would probably repeat. You said 15 minutes?
Well, that's what I did the first time with the doctor,
okay.
right? So then I started using it every day with just everyday things, right? I noticed when I was becoming emotional during the day, and which in itself is like a hard thing to stand back and say, oh, look at me, I'm becoming emotional, because we get caught up in our emotions. But it gets easier as you do it more and more.
Becoming more aware of it.
Right. So I was able to say, okay, I'm becoming emotional now, or this thought is fearful. And then I would tap right then and there about it, right? I'm feeling afraid right now of something's going to happen, right? You want to be as specific as possible. So then I would tap and bring myself back to peace, and then go on about my day and catch myself again and do it again. And I found myself becoming more peaceful and less reactionary. And I wanted more because it felt good. And I just wanted more of this. So what I did is I wrote down every emotional memory I could think of from my childhood and my prior years. So multiple sheets of paper.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah, right. I tapped through one each night for about an hour to an hour and a half each night. So I was determined.
Wow.
And it was months, I'm pretty sure it must have been months to get through all of those. I could feel that I was becoming more peaceful inside. Things were starting to change in my life. And I realized at one point I opened my kitchen door and I said to myself, it just feels like I'm living in a different reality, because I realized that my mind, which had been so busy and so critical and judgmental, it wasn't anymore. It was peaceful, and it just felt so unusual, right? It wasn't my normal. So it felt very different, and I had to get used to it.
Wow.
I imagine some people come into the world and, they have that all the time. But I think maybe if we experience trauma in childhood, we don't have that peace as much, that inner peace. So to me, it just felt weird, but I got used to it. And it was actually at that point that I realized that the words that had been replaying in my mind had been my dad's words that I had been programmed with in childhood. And I just replayed them over and over, but I couldn't see that until they were gone.
Wow. Somehow you were conditioned to be whatever it is that he was saying, and that was it was his words.
Yeah. And
Wow.
I think we just get programmed in those early years. People will criticize us and then we start criticizing ourselves using the same words that they used.
Hmm. Well, I mean, we are, especially like our family, we grow up that pathology. We can get many things passed on without realizing it, good and bad, from our
Yes.
family line and how we've grown up in the homes that we've grown up in. So it's important to be aware of these things, and that way you can kind of take notice for yourself, if
Right.
things start
Right. And
to
it's not
arise.
just our family, right? It's our school, right? We get
Yes, the
programmed in school,
environment. Yes.
and society and the government.
Mm-hmm.
We Yeah. And the thing is, yes, we want to try and become aware of it. I just could not I don't know that we can become aware of a lot of it until we do some of this inner work. Because as I did more and more of it, my awareness expanded. And I don't know that it would have happened. Actually, I don't think it would have happened unless I had done this work to release this tension, because that tension was actually holding my awareness back.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That is
So
something.
this is just the first step. So shall I carry on?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay. So as I said, it's opening up the subconscious mind and it's expanding the awareness. So those two things kind of happen at the same time.
Mhm.
And so I became aware of my emotions during the day more and more. And there's a deeper level to that as well, because underneath the emotions are a set of physical sensations. So we might use the word anger or frustration or sadness, but what we're really describing is how we're holding the tension in our body, right? Because you might see someone in the distance and you can tell if they're sad or angry by their posture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a set of physical sensations, and we can become aware of that in ourselves. Now, I was not aware of that when I started this journey. It's something that I developed as I released more and more tension. So when I became aware of these physical sensations, I was actually in a group at the time, and the kind of guru, the head of the group, each week he would say, you don't have to meditate. It's all about feeling your feelings. So I didn't want to meditate, so that was good. But at the time, I didn't know what my feelings were. So I didn't know what feeling my feelings meant.
Mm-hmm.
But as the weeks went by and I did more and more tapping, I became aware of these physical sensations underneath the emotions. And then I thought one day, okay, well, he says it every week, so maybe I should try and do it. And it sounds so simple, right? I'm just going to feel my feelings. But my feelings had been suppressed for decades. They didn't know how to be felt. So I actually had to train myself to do it. And I would do it while I was standing at the kitchen sink doing the dishes. I would notice a thought that had some emotion behind, right? So I noticed I was thinking a thought and feeling afraid. Normally my emotion was fear. And I would notice where I was holding that fear. And for me, it would be tension, mostly in the solar plexus or the stomach area. And I would feel that tension, that fear sitting in there. But I would notice if I moved or if I took a deep breath, I would lose it, because it was so used to being held inside and suppressed. It didn't want to be felt.
Wow.
Now, these words I'm using are kind of weird, but this is the way I have to describe it.
It's okay.
So, okay, good. So I would feel this fear and I would have to hold myself like a statue. I would actually have to stop breathing when I could feel that fear. And then I could talk to it. And I would say things like, okay, I can feel this fear. I can feel this tension sitting in my stomach or my solar plexus. I just want to feel you. I just want to feel you. I don't want to change you. I just want you to be felt. And at some point, I would need to take a deep breath. And I could feel there would be a release of the fear as I took this deep breath.
Wow.
And then I would think the thought again, this fearful thought, and feel the fear again. And it would be slightly diminished, or it might have moved somewhere else. And I would feel it again, hold myself like a statue, feel it, and need to take a deep breath, and there would be another shift. So I would do this over and over again with the same thought until the emotion had dissipated.
Wow.
at which point that thought is free, right? All the attachments to that thought have then gone from the body.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Ooh, that's deep
So
work.
I would, it is, well, it gets deeper. So I would just do this over and over again instead of tapping now, because it's a deeper level of awareness.
Mm-hmm. You're
So
sitting
now,
in it. You're sitting in that feeling. You're not as trying to escape from it, change your mind from it. You are really just sitting and feeling that feeling for that moment.
right,
Wow.
right.
Hmm.
But it's also deeper, right? The awareness is deeper because when we're using EFT, excuse me, we're using words and memories, right? So it's not as physical. It doesn't feel as physical, but now we're actually feeling tension in the body on the surface layers of the body, but on the body nonetheless.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, instead of tapping, I would do this feeling the feeling. So I would do this during the day if I caught myself feeling emotional. And then at night, instead of working on my childhood, because I had done that with EFT, I would lay on the sofa and bring a collective trauma to mind, right? Something like 9/11, because we all have our own individual experience of something that was a collective trauma.
Yes.
Right? You feel some emotions around it, and I feel some emotions around it. And so I would lay on the sofa and bring that memory to mind and feel all those feelings, all those physical sensations, and just allow them to be felt, and they would dissipate. So I would bring that thought back to mind, the feelings back to mind, and let them dissipate a little bit more. And I would just do that over and over, and it felt really good.
Wow. Wow. Oh my gosh.
So
this is
that kind of felt like another step, like a second step. So I call that the second step, which is feeling the feelings.
Okay.
And then at some point during this process, I'm lying on the sofa and feeling these feelings and just allowing them to be felt. At some point, I realized I could keep my awareness inside my body after the tension had released, which was really weird. It felt very different, and it's really hard to explain, but the best way I can do it is imagine you have a toothache or a stomach ache. Mm-hmm. You can pinpoint, right? You can feel where that pain is coming from. Yeah?
Yes.
But once the pain has gone, you probably can't feel inside at the same place anymore because there's nothing calling your attention to it.
That's true.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found that I could keep my awareness inside my body after the pain or after the tension had dissipated. And it was really weird. I'd never heard of this before. I still haven't heard anyone else talk about it. So I was just playing with it. I mean, I've done it once now. Can I do it again? And I found that I could. And then, okay, I can do this weird thing now. So what can I do with it? So I realized I could move my awareness around inside my body, and I could find tension or no tension. So I'd find a place with tension. I would hold my awareness on the tension and just allow it to be felt, and it would shift. And then I would do it again and again and again. And that tension inside would dissipate or dissolve, just like with feeling the feelings. And just like with EFT, I'm now at a deeper level of awareness still inside the body. So this was kind of weird. So I would just keep doing this. But it feels really good, right? Mm-hmm. Some people think this journey of inner work is tedious or it's work, but it feels really good. So I got to the place where there was nothing else I would rather do because it just felt so good to release this deep tension. So I just kept doing it. And it took many, many months of this working inside my body until I could actually get my awareness inside my head. And that was incredibly eye-opening for me because there was so much pain inside my left cheek, and the tension and the forces pulling my bones out of alignment were just incredible. And I had no idea, right? The first 50 years of my life at this point, I had been living with this pain and tension inside my head, and I had no awareness of it.
Wow.
Yet it had been there the whole time.
What?
So
that you'd never been
since my foot, right? I was born with my foot against my shin, and my whole body has been twisted I had
Yes.
scoliosis.
Okay.
So that tension was there the whole time. I just did not have the awareness of it.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So I just kept going, right? I had this technique at this point, so I could put my awareness on the tension and just allow it to be felt. And it would release a little bit. To begin with, I could only put my awareness on the pain in my left cheek for like a second or two because it was so intense. But over time, things would start loosening up and release. And at some point, actually, because now I'm in my head, right, I'm close to my ears, I would feel and hear something release. And it almost sounded like old fabric ripping. And it felt like old fabric ripping. So at that point, I did some research because I wanted to know I wasn't hurting myself.
Right.
And I realized there was an adhesion in the connective tissue that was releasing. So I had released enough tension that it felt comfortable releasing. So I knew at that point I wasn't hurting myself. So I just kept going. Mm-hmm. And over time, I could actually feel my skull bones relax into what I now know is a more aligned position. But at the time, it just felt like really deep relaxation, felt really good. So last year, like 2021, I had some new x-rays taken. It was just my orthodontist who took the x-rays. And compared to 2013, you can actually see that my eye sockets have aligned and my jaw, which was way off to the side, is much more centered. And my neck is way straighter. It was really bad before, but it's way straighter than it was. And as a consequence, I have grown half an inch at 55.
Woo!
Because of this deep inner release of tension.
Yes, and that is something. Wow. Now that's talking about some inner work. That is really doing some inner work. How amazing is that? Wow. I mean, for the fact that you have reconstructed your physical body without even knowing that there was pain underneath it, you know?
Right. And it wasn't my goal, right? My goal was always to find inner peace.
Wow.
So the physical changes are just a natural consequence of letting go of tension and dis-ease on the inside.
On the inside. Wow. Now that is something. That is something. Wow. So why did you, or what did I say, why did you want to write this book, A Pathway to Insight? What was your goal for writing the book?
Well, two things. I would love other people to do this work. I want other people to know how powerful we are.
Yes.
But I also wanted to remember all the steps that I had gone through, that, you know, really writing them down, because when our body releases so much tension, you know, it does some things that you wouldn't normally expect it to do. So I wanted to capture all those memories before I moved beyond it, because I knew I was just keeping going. I've just kept going since then. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to capture those steps.
I love it. I love it. I love it. And where can we find your book?
It's available on Amazon, or you can ask your local bookstore to order it.
Excellent. We love that. We love that. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so let me ask, who's around you that keeps you motivated? Or are you a self-motivator?
Okay, second part of the question, yes. Yes, I am. The path keeps me motivated, right? The feeling the changes, experiencing the changes keeps me motivated. How good it feels keeps me motivated. Yeah, I mean, there is so much more depth to life than I ever knew like 10, 15 years ago. And experiencing positive thoughts arise, experiencing new thoughts arise that you've never experienced before, right? Fun things like that, the serendipities that happen are just so much fun that it's absolutely incentive to keep going.
I love it. I love it. Are you able to pass on this motivation to your family members, the people that are around you?
I don't think they're ready to do this work yet.
Oh,
but I do have friends. I do have friends that are.
Well, that's honest. You know, mom knows.
Yeah.
You know,
well, my husband didn't have these traumas that I had, right? So there's less incentive there. And my boys really aren't old enough yet. They've got their own paths. At some point they might look into it, but.
Was your husband supportive of this work and your findings and your journey thus far?
I think he probably thinks it's a little weird.
Okay, thank you for your honesty.
He is supported, but things change, right? Because I used to be really reactionary. I used to be pretty negative, and it was probably pretty difficult to be around me sometimes. I would say I was maybe highly strung, but I'm pretty peaceful now, right? All sorts of things can go on around me now, and I can stay in a place of peace.
Wow. And so he has to be able to see that change.
Yes,
definitely.
Absolutely.
So the effects, he knows the effects are working.
Yeah. Oh, yes, totally.
I love that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask, what 4 words come to mind when you think of yourself?
Okay. Some of them kind of go together. So I would say authentic, I hope. Right? Walks her talk, right? I try, and my most important thing is doing my inner work, right? I'm doing other things, right? I'm sharing my story so that other people can do this too. But I do it because it's fun. So I can be authentic and I can be someone who walks her talk at the same time. So that's one. Peaceful, I would say. I think I can claim to be peaceful now.
Nice.
And I certainly could not have claimed that before. And powerful. I know I am powerful now, and I did not know that before.
Oh, wow. That's awesome. Love that.
Thank you.
Let's see the 3. One more?
No, that was 3. Authentic, peaceful, and powerful. Oh, did you want 4?
Yes, 4 words.
Oh.
Please.
Honest.
Oh.
I know how important that is, right?
Yes.
Because it's part of our signal, right? If we're telling something that's not honest, there's part of our signal that is feeling that. And that's what we're going to get back in the future.
It's true. Or if you're not living honest, if not how you're acting, but if you're not living an honest way, or you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing, all of that. Yeah, it's what's going to come back. My grandmother used to say, what we put out is what we're going to get back in. And so we have to be careful about how we're living and how we're treating people, because, it's going to come back. So,
right. But there's 2 ways of doing that, right? There's the suppressing way and pretending that you're not doing it, right? And that you're actually being a good boy or a good girl, right? There's that way, but that's still part of your signal, right? That hidden part that you suppressed is still part of the signal. So you've got to become aware of what it is you're hiding, and feel it and let it go, so that you can actually be in an authentic place of really living your truth.
Yes. Speak on it, and speak on it. Tell them. I love it. Yes. So, Ann, let me ask you, what kind of goals are you setting now to affect a better future, or a more productive future? You told me the things that you have put in, that you've learned. What steps are you using to make future goals with them?
I'm not much of a goal person.
Okay, that's honest.
I'm experimenting still. I want to know if I do this work, it's actually changing me, right? So I want to be the change that I want to see in the world.
All right. Hey.
So I want to be this new person. So as I am doing this inner work, I am changing. One of the fun things was actually seeing the x-rays, not the x-rays from the front. Anyone can see those x-rays, by the way. They're on my website and they're on my YouTube channel. But in one of my YouTube videos, I actually show the x-rays from the side. And when I look at those, I'm pretending it's not me, right? I'm just looking at someone's x-rays. They're not me. But the one from 2013, that person in that x-ray, that's not a confident person. You can tell from the way they're holding their head. And the one from last year, from 2021, that is a more confident person. So I know that this work is changing me at a deep level, right? So it's changing my bone structure to become a more confident person.
I love
So
that.
as I'm doing at it, that it's changing me, and I will see what happens as a result of the changes.
Okay, so you're not putting any expectations out. You're not. Is there something that
I
you?
have some knowing. I have knowing now that I didn't have before. I actually know things are going to change at some point. I just don't know when.
Okay, okay. Do you know what will change or no? You just know something.
I know some things that I'm not ready to share.
Okay, okay. Sorry. I'm like,
No, that's okay.
we say we're not ready to get on to that just yet. Another time. Sorry, I'm about unveiling all your information.
No, it's totally fine. I'm just even know that you can get to a place of knowing is interesting, right? Because I
Yes.
did not. I kind of thought I knew some things before, until I got to the place where I really know some things. I realized that what I thought I knew was not knowing. There's a difference between thinking you know and actually knowing.
Oh, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
It is very, very true. I
Yes.
and another guest that I had spoken with, Jason Butler, we spoke about the Matrix, and feeling like we are living, if we are living in a type of matrix, and that some people, are gradually waking up to a realization that's going on. And your story sounds as that there's been an awakening where you have realized there's a lot more going on. And with that understanding and awareness, you are able to find deeper truth within yourself. And
Absolutely, because I know myself at a deeper level. And when we know ourselves at a deeper level, we see that outside of ourselves as well as inside of ourselves.
yes.
Yeah, I love the Matrix movies. They're my favorite movies. At some point, I'd love to write a book about them.
Yes.
And because I have this, well, maybe not, because I can put my awareness inside my body, I actually see the Matrix movies from a different way than other people see them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. How do you see it?
The Matrix is what we create, right? We're creating the Matrix with our mind, our subconscious mind, and our programming. But the real world, what they call the real world, and the machine world is actually, I believe it's actually inside our body. And every person in the real world is actually an aspect of ourselves.
Okay.
Yeah, so Morpheus is our inner self, right? He's always absolutely supportive of us.
Yes.
Believes in us unwaveringly. Yeah. So.
All right now. Yes, I love that. Yeah, it's true. We can, it's one of my favorite movies as well. And just the metaphors and things, how we can just compare to life. There's a lot that's going on. Definitely people are asleep too, for sure.
Yeah. So this is a great way to wake up, right? Do these techniques.
Yes, within yourself. Yes, because you know yourself. That is perfect.
Absolutely. You know yourself at a deeper and deeper level.
Yes. Well, it sounds that you are living your life, like really living at this point. Do you know anyone around you who is in this type of living space, who's living their life to the fullest?
No, really, actually, I don't, because
what
I feel is living your life at the fullest is knowing, I guess it's knowing what I know at the deepest level right there.
Okay. So you said
talk to someone else.
Okay, go ahead.
If I could talk to someone else who could sense inside their body, right, and had that deep level of awareness, I would know that they're also experiencing the depth of life that is available to them. And that is really hard to put in words, right? How much depth there is to life. The deeper we know ourselves, the deeper we sense life around us.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely. Well, I'm interested. After we put this out, I'll be interested. Maybe there are other people who have been working on this type of work or feeling these type of ways and not really able to describe it without looking crazy to anyone. Because it would sound, if someone came up and said this, you'd just be looking at them like, whatever, but ideally your story is most amazing because you have the facts to be able to show. I'm not just saying what I'm saying. There's actual x-rays to show about what's happened for the physical structure, and you've never gone to a bone doctor to have any surgery. So
right. I'm not even sure you could change eye sockets with surgery.
Yeah, I don't even
yes.
know either. Right? So
Right.
ideally, and to be flawlessly put back, the way that things were supposed to be, like, yeah, it's a powerful work. So I get it. But maybe there will be some other people who will step out to feel like they can, have this conversation with you, or feel that you can, because I can't believe that you would be the only one. Right?
Please contact me if you're listening and you can put your awareness inside your body. Please contact me, because I would love a conversation with you.
Yes, definitely. Listeners, if you are, or someone who a story sounds similar or has had these type of awareness journeys, yes, please feel free to contact Ann. She will give her information at the end. But yeah, I can't imagine in the world of all these people that you would be the only person, right?
Right.
I think it's something to share.
I know people have been able to do it in the past. I believe it's the original meaning of the word insight. We use that word a lot, but we use it more in terms of the mind, or even outside the mind.
Mm-hmm.
But I believe it's actually inward sight.
I like that. Wow. That's powerful. Yes, insight. All right, Ann. Yeah. Yes. Okay. Okay, so let me ask you this. If you could borrow anything from anyone for 1 week, what would you borrow, and from whom?
Okay, you might think this answer is a little strange, but I would borrow Jesus's awareness.
Ooh, I wasn't expecting that, but I like it. Okay, Ann, go in now. Give us a little more on this.
Well, I believe that he was able to do this. He was able to, I believe he had the depth of awareness, the deepest awareness that you could possibly have. And I would like to know what that feels like. So if I could have that for a week, that would be perfect. Then I would know how much more I need to do, how much more work there is to do.
What a spectacular answer. What a spectacular answer. Yes. Would you say I'm going to get it?
It was a pretty amazing question, right?
Why, thank you, Ann. Why, thank you. Yes, that's so great. You're right. And then by that week, you'd have all that you need to know. You'd be able to really fully explain it in a way for people to understand, and maybe guide them in a tighter journey on how to get there for themselves. Like, yeah, wow. That sounds awesome.
Yeah. Then I'd go back to having as much tension as I have now at the end of the week. So maybe that would be a good incentive.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Spectacular answer. Okay, let me ask you, what color describes you at this point in your life, and why?
Blue.
Okay.
Blue.
Blue.
Blue, I actually wear blue almost all the time. I add a little bit of turquoise sometimes, a little bit of purple sometimes, but my car's blue. I keep painting things blue. I actually have got to the point where I can feel into colors.
Ooh.
Now, I couldn't do that before. Okay. I've actually been an artist pretty much my whole life, and I was really a really detailed pencil portrait artist, drawer, whatever.
Wow.
But that was before I did all this work, right? So doing all this work loosens you up, right? Mm-hmm. So now I paint with acrylic, and I paint abstract paintings, and I can feel into colors. So I can relax fully into blue. But the one interesting thing, and my family do not like this, but I feel a physical resistance to white. Because it reflects light, and people use it so much these days, but it reflects our light. So I will avoid wearing whites at all costs. I'm sorry if someone's listening to this and they're offended by that in any way. Don't be. But if
it's by choice.
Mm-hmm. Right, but maybe you'll develop this awareness at some point. But I had a friend once, and she would wear white. She was in some spiritual group, and they would wear white. She would wear white all the time. And one day she decided to change and stop doing that, and she wore blue and blue jeans. And she just felt so different, right?
Mm-hmm.
You could relax around her finally. So yeah. Okay, there we go. That was a long answer to blue.
No, but that's at least you gave us an explanation. That was the why. Yeah, we get it. So is it a certain color blue? Are you wearing light blue, dark blues, royal blues? Okay. Anything in the blue
Royal
spectrum?
blue, more royal blue.
Okay.
Yeah, not light blue. No, because that's got white in it.
Oh, okay. That's funny. So when you were a child, was your favorite color blue?
I don't remember having a favorite color as a child.
Okay.
It could have been, but yeah, it doesn't stick with me.
Okay. And even as a young adult, was there a color that you were most drawn to?
No, I wore all sorts of colors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. Well, with the new awareness, you found out that your favorite color is blue.
Yeah, because
right?
I mean, it's all been about relaxation, right? So, I mean, my story could have been talked about in terms of it's just relaxation at a deeper and deeper level. So I can relax when I'm wearing blue, but I can't. There's tension if I'm wearing white. So I'm all about relaxation, right? That's my signal. I want to be relaxed. I want to be at peace. So I'm attracting peace to my future. And I can't do that in white.
Wow.
But I can in blue.
Yeah, well, look, as long as we got a spectrum of colors. So what you say, we can choose. And that's the awesome part, definitely. My mom is a person of color. She likes pinks and oranges and greens, and yeah, I like blue as well. It's one of my colors that I enjoy as well with green. Yes, there's certain colors you just wear, you feel calm, you feel relaxed in, without anyone ever saying. But yeah, you're right. There's a attraction to color that makes you feel a certain way. Actually, a friend of mine was just mentioning that she had her colors chosen. She went to some place and they put fabric up against her and they were telling her, these are your colors and to wear this kind of color. And when I saw her, the color, I was like, wow, every day she was just radiating with her outfits. And I was like, wow, you look so great today. And she said, Chris, I have found the color that works best for me. And she was explaining, and they do that here in Japan. It's one of the things that they do, that they can find out what color works best for you and the energy that matches you best. And I had never even heard of that before. So
that is nice. I would say it would be nicer if you would be able to feel your own color, right? Come up with it yourself,
yeah, look,
rather than relying on someone else.
I definitely like to feel my own color. That's free. The cost for this is not cheap to go and get done. Yes, definitely. I like to do it myself. But I think I have an idea about what colors make me feel a certain way and what colors that don't. No one has to say, but yeah, I think everyone can kind of think about it and be like, this accents me and this kind of just really doesn't. So,
right.
But,
and some teenagers, right? A lot of teenagers go through the black phase.
Yes.
Right? And that's, maybe they feel safe, right? They're tuning into something inside of themselves. And that's what feels good to them right now. So it's when we try and force them to do something that they don't want to do, that's when we're adding that trauma, right? That stress or disease inside of them. So, ideally we want them to do that and work and move beyond it. And they probably will at some point.
No, you're right. This needs to be on a loudspeaker, blasted. Your message just needs to, because it's really self-work. We can't really help other people if we can't get ourselves together. We can't really do a lot if we are not as we should be. So inner work and personal work has to be at the top of the list. And for some people, it's not even on the list. They haven't even thought about doing any work. They're still asleep or whatever to say. But this is something that needs to be on an announcement that for even people to just think about. And, for all the listeners that are listening in, I just want you to think about inner work for yourself. It's nothing you'll ever get a memo about. It's nothing that you will ever be thinking like, oh, maybe wake up one morning, I should do some work on myself. But I hope that this podcast episode just sheds a little light for you to think about, what kind of inner work can I do for myself? Or what kind of inner work can I continue or to start or be consistent with because consistency gives us good results. And putting it in, taking care of ourselves should be top priority. So that way we can take care of others. So awesome, Ann. Thank you. Thank you so much. In closing, I like to ask all of my guests this final question. Is your glass half empty or half full?
Well, that's an easy one. It's half full and it's getting fuller. Or probably I should say it's getting more full.
Yes,
However
yes.
you say that.
Yes. Either way we get it. We get it. Can I ask you, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
Well, we talked about depths of life. The other thing I like to leave people with is the idea that they have so much more control over what's happening in their life than they think they do, right? Because we think if we're watching someone argue or we're listening to something on the TV or the radio that we don't like, we don't think there's anything we can do about it at that point. But what we can do is notice how we're feeling, and we can release those feelings and come back to peace, because that in itself is changing our future.
Yes. So fantastic. So great, Ann. Ann, can you tell everyone how they can reach you if they're interested to get in contact with you?
Sure. I have my website, annhince.com, which is ANNHINCE.com. And my x-rays are on there, like I said, so you can check those out. I also have a YouTube channel, which has a demonstration video of EFT and a demonstration video of feeling your feelings, and several other videos that you can check out on there. And I have a public Facebook page that you can check out, and I'm happy to interact with anyone on there.
Awesome.
And of course, my book, right? And my book, A Pathway to Insight.
Yes, A Pathway to Insight. You can find on Amazon. I'm going to put all of the links and information in the clip as well so that all the listeners can find it there. Thank you so much, Ann, for being a guest here on Glass Half Full. We are so glad for you to come and share your story, your testimony with everyone. It's been awesome.
Thank you. It's been really fun.
Oh, the pleasure is all mine. Please take care. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you. And thank you to all our listeners listening in to another episode of Glass Half Full, a podcast and a safe platform for everyone to share their life experiences. Once again, I'm your host, Chris Levens. Please subscribe, follow, and rate this podcast on Apple Music and Spotify for more learning experiences. Until next time, know you are blessed. See ya!